Hi everyone, it's Sunflower Spirit here, and I'm here to do a pick a card reading. And the topic is on how can you feel more empowered with your choices. So we have pile number one, which is the Spellcaster's Tarot, pile number two, which is the Gilded Tarot, and pile number three, which is the Radiant Rider Waite. So go ahead and pick your pile. We'll get started. This is for those of you who chose pile number one or the Spellcaster's Tarot. This is on the topic of, hi kitty, sorry, kitty. This is on the topic of um, how can you feel more empowered with your choices. So we have the Ace of Cups, kitty. We have the Two of Swords. We have the Page of Swords. And we have the Ten of Wands. And then we also have isolation, innocence, release, and patience. So for those of you who chose pile number one, how can you feel? Excuse me, Kitty. I know. Excuse me. Kitty wants to do the reading. So how can you feel more empowered with your choices, in the choices that you're making? So I'm seeing. Come here, Kitty. Come here. Help Mama do reading. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. So what I'm seeing is that you kind of, with your choices, if you chose pile number one, you kind of like you leave yourself at a stalemate. Like, you don't give yourself the opportunity to, like, it's such a burden for you to make these decisions because of, like, what has happened in the past. So I feel like you are, um, I feel like you are like so focused on what how it hasn't worked out for you in the past because you maybe haven't like trusted yourself in the past to make good decisions, or you haven't made good decisions in the past and you've regretted the decisions that you have made, that you sort of put yourself at this stalemate where it's such a burden for you to make a decision, it's such a burden for you to choose, that you almost like shut yourself down from the I mean, you do shut yourself down from this sort of like fear of, having this heartbreak or making a decision that's going to cause you, ultimately pain. I do see you as a person who has the ability to, really research and find out, really do your research, find out what you want to do, like make these observations about what you want to do. I do see that you really need to balance yourself out and have patience with yourself, that you do have what it takes, and that you do have, these huge opportunities for growth with your decisions. It's just a matter of trusting yourself and really like balancing out that sort of like emotional state that kind of puts you in this like stalemate here, where you are kind of going to, it's like you feel like you're going to lose either way because that's what has happened in the past. So you just shut yourself down, basically. You shut yourself off. It's like such this burden, it's such a stressful thing for you. You just shut it off, you just shut it down. And I do see you like having what it takes. It might need to be developed a little further, but it really like this stems from this past this past pain, this like not letting go, not trusting in the divine, not trusting in yourself, your higher self, because I do see like you have everything that it takes to make these good choices, to make these good loving choices for yourself. Um, but you keep yourself in this sort of limbo, and then that kind of like prevents you, like, so it's kind of like not making a decision is like choosing not to decide is a decision in and of itself. Um, you have, yeah, you have this capacity, like I feel like you want to know, you want to learn, you really do want to like be able to balance it out, but it's sort of like having this patience with yourself. It's sort of understanding that like there's this there's a certain amount of trust that will ultimately go into your decision making ability. And this is a struggle. It really is a struggle for you. But it's not something that can't be overcome. Like it totally, it totally has the capacity to be overcome. It's just a matter of allowing yourself, like letting go of this stress for one thing, letting go of the stress, just kind of like sitting with stuff, just being able to kind of like sit with stuff, meditate on it, being able to, sometimes, like when you make a decision, I feel like sometimes there's this period where you have to just like let it go and just say, I'm not going to worry about it today. I'm going to worry about it other times. Usually that's when I find that I get the most profound messages, or they just come to me in whatever ways, is when I'm just like, I have this decision and I'm like worrying, worrying, worrying. And I'm like, I don't know, going back and forth. And then I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it today. And then that's bam, when I find this clarity is like during that period of time where I'm just allowing myself to like enjoy the moment, to not worry about the decision so much, but just enjoy my life, just like enjoy the moment, enjoy the day. So hopefully that was helpful for you, pile number one. If not, you can feel free to check out the other piles. I appreciate you guys stopping by. So this is for those of you who chose pile number two or the Gilded Tarot. So this is on the topic of how can you feel more empowered with your choices, in the choices that you're making. So you have the Ten of Wands. Oh, that's so weird. Pile one had Ten of Wands. Five of Cups. You have Justice. And you have the Six of Wands. All right. And then you also have Awareness. You have the Dream. You have Abundance. And you have Balance. So right away, I'm getting this. We have justice and balance. So balance is going to be like the justice card in the Rider, like the typical Rider Waite deck. Um, so having the justice card here twice. What is the justice card about? So it's about making ethical decisions, making decisions that you're not going to regret later because you did something that like goes against your belief system or goes against your value system. So it's really like making sure that like whatever decision you're making, it's an ethical one. It's one that you're going to be able to be okay living with yourself later, like be in alignment with your values later, because um you knew that you did the best that you could. You knew that you made like a fair choice for everyone involved, if that makes sense. So for you, pile number two, your how you're going to empower yourself is really like making sure that you understand where your values are. First of all, you're going to have this sort of like self-awareness to know like what you're headed towards with your values. You're going to know like what you want, what you don't want, and so you're going to use that sort of as like your moral compass. um I do see this is similar to pile one in that, like, I do see decisions are stressful for you. You have a lot of regret from the past, about like the decisions that you've made in the past, and that's sort of why, why you're here, why you're asked, why you're wondering about this. You're hoping for, you're really wanting to. I feel like you have this huge desire to be like self-sufficient, like to have this self-confidence in making these decisions. I feel like you have the capacity, pile two, you have the capacity to, those of you who chose this pile have the capacity to be leaders, to, make really good choices that are going to, benefit not just yourself but everybody involved. You have the ability to kind of like see that like more holistically, and that's why it's so important for you to focus on your value system throughout this process. And I really find this card interesting because as this would be like the Justice card in the typical Rider Waite tarot, but if you could see here, he's got a wand, he's got a pentacle, he's got a cup, and he's got a sword. So it's almost like the magician, energy is coming through with this. Like, you have everything that you need, and your angels are backing it up. Your God, your angels, the universe, whoever, whatever it is you believe in, your higher self is backing it up for you. So you do have this confidence, you do have this ability to get this abundance, to have this confidence, to be this like abundant decision maker, to make really good decisions that, don't lead you down the path of disappointment and frustration and loss. They will lead you more towards, towards this goal of, sixes for me are about love, they're about harmony. So these are like harmonious decisions. These are going to be, you have the Six of Wands, and this would be like the Six of Cups. So this is like really, you really do have what it takes, pile two, to be a good decision maker. This Ten of Wands, this is like a burden for you. It's stressful, it's very stressful, but I see you like persevering with it. Like, I really do see you persevering. Like, even though it might be scary, like it's a little bit scary, I do see you like taking the lead and just persevering and just getting through. Like, this is just what I need to do. I'm going to do it. You recognize that there's like this end game here. You recognize there is this end game. I think on some level you do recognize that you have everything that it takes. It just requires this this trust of yourself. Ultimately, these three cards is like this trust in self, this trust that you will, carry forward with your values, that you will, that you know what your values are, that you believe in your values, and that you believe that your values are ethical. And that's kind of what this card is about too. So that's very good, pile two. Hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully it resonated. If not, you can feel free to check out the other piles. Thank you so much for stopping by today. All right, this is for those of you who chose pile number three or the Radiant Rider Waite Tarot. Let's see what your cards are. We're on the topic of how can you feel more empowered with your choices, with your decisions. So we have the King of Wands, you have the Ace of Pentacles, you have the Eight of Cups, you have the Four of Swords. Oops, sorry, my plant is growing so big. Can't see anything. Okay, and then you have guilt, you have existence, you have faith, and you have material harvest. Okay, so for those of you who chose pile number three, how can you feel more empowered with the decisions, your choices that you make? So I see kind of what I see as your struggle. for making these decisions, those of you who chose pile number 3, is this sort of like, I feel like you don't really do things, or the decisions that you make don't really align with the decisions that the people around you would make. Or they're, a lot of times you're kind of looked at when you make these decisions, you're kind of judged as like, well, I wouldn't do that, so you must be crazy, sort of thing. Um, because it's not that you're crazy, it's not that like you're doing it wrong, it's just that you do things differently. I definitely see you as like a leader. You do a lot of things differently. You do make different decisions than most of the people around you, and people don't understand that. And so it leads you to this sort of like feeling of like you feel stuck because you sort of know that you do things differently, but you're also sort of like, this is just how I have to do it. Like, this is, I'm just doing it for me. Like, you don't have to understand it. So you're kind of like caught between this two. And so it leads you to this sort of like contemplation state where you're trying to like figure out, you're trying to like rest and sort of like assess, like, oh my gosh, like, is this really something, that I need to be doing? Is this so, and so it leads you to the, like being different and like sort of like having this sort of like eclectic or eccentric or I don't know, like take on things. It kind of leads you to feel a little bit trapped in your decision making, feel a little bit guilty for making the decisions that you do because they're not based on like the people. It's hard to get the support from the people around you, and you find yourself most times having to move on from the hurt and the shame that people cause. And I don't think they cause it intentionally, but I think for you, you just think about things differently, you see the world differently, you make decisions differently than other people. And so you're finding yourself having to move on quite a bit. You find yourself having to move on from this like guilt, this shame of like feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm making the wrong decision because everyone else is telling me to. You have to like separate yourself out. And so there's a lot of like contemplation time that goes into this. And I don't see you making bad decisions. I see that, the struggle for you is trying to get through like trying to understand that, like, even though you might do things differently, you still have everything it takes. Like, the universe still has your back. Just because you do it differently doesn't mean that the universe or God or spirit or your higher self is going to reject that. You still have that support. And I still see you make excellent decisions because we have the Ace of Pentacles here. You make solid, lasting decisions, and that is ultimately like, what you want for decisions in your life. Yeah, it's almost as if you've like mastered. It's almost as if you've mastered this, even though, you do things differently. And I feel like sometimes, those curses or those things, I mean, I guess I should have put it like that, but the things that feel like curses sometimes can also be the blessings in our life, can also be the things that like